Before we jump into the episode today, I want to share something with you from my heart. First of all, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really can't tell you how much your support means to me. We've been doing the podcast now for almost 4 years. I can't even believe it. And I'm so grateful for each and every single one of you that listens, shares an episode with your friends, sends me a DM or a text message letting me know how an episode resonated with you or any aha moments. Seriously, I couldn't be more grateful to be able to create this podcast. It has been such a blessing in my life, and I love hearing the ways it's been able to provide value in yours as well. One thing you might not know is how much work it takes to be consistent with a podcast. In fact, did you know that the majority of podcasts don't make it past episode number 10? And we are well beyond that. And it's just a lot thinking of the episodes, recording them, editing them, managing the guests, making sure that everything runs smoothly and gets uploaded consistently and regularly. And so that's why I have created an amazing opportunity for you to support the podcast monetarily. And in exchange for that, you will get exclusive premium subscriber content. So for as little as $3 a month, you can become a premium subscriber of the podcast. And every month I will upload new voice-guided workouts and breathwork meditation audio for you. So that way you can work out with me, coaching you in your ears. You can also take a moment to reduce your stress and relax and come down and ground down with one of my breathwork audios. So if that is on your heart to support the podcast for as little as $3 a month to become a premium podcast subscriber, I can't tell you how much that means to me and the growth of this podcast. I appreciate you. If you're interested, click the link in the description, become a premium podcast subscriber, new content every month, and while supplies last, I'll send you an exclusive podcast coffee mug so you can have your self-love and sweat coffee every morning. I appreciate you. Now let's get into the show. Welcome to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast, the place where you'll get inspired to live your life unapologetically, embrace your perfect imperfections, break down barriers, and do what sets your soul on fire. I'm your host, Lunden Souza. Hey, have you grabbed your free Self-Love and Sweat monthly calendar yet? This calendar is so amazing. It comes right in your inbox every single month to help you have a little nugget of wisdom, a sweaty workout, a mindset activity, just a little something to help keep you focused and motivated and keep that momentum towards your goals. So every day when you get this calendar, you'll see a link that you can click that will lead to a podcast episode or a workout or something that will be very powerful and quick to read. And then you'll also see on the top left corner of every single day, there's a little checkbox in the calendar. And what that is that's for your one thing. You can choose one thing every month, or it can be the same, something that you want to implement, and make this something that you can easily implement, like daily meditation or getting a certain amount of steps or water, for example, and staying hydrated, and even taking your supplements. This can be something if you want to get more regular doing a particular habit and routine, you can choose what that checkbox means. So if you want your Self-Love and Sweat free monthly calendar delivered right to your inbox every month on the first of the month, go to lifelikeLondon.com/calendar, fill out the form really quickly, and you will have your calendar in your inbox within a few short minutes. That's lifelikeLondon, lifelikeLondon.com/calendar. Go get yours for free and enjoy this episode. Welcome back to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. Today we have Kevin Suber on the show, who's slowly but quickly becoming one of my favorite humans on the planet. He is a servant, entrepreneur, speaker, coach, and author. And we had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know each other in this community called NABA, which you guys have heard me talk a lot about. I'm so excited to have you here, Kevin. Welcome to the show.
London, I'm excited to be here. It's going to be good. The very first time I met you, it was like energy, connection, let's go. So I'm excited.
Yeah, same. In fact, we were chatting a little bit before I pressed record, and I was like, wait, stop talking because this is going to get good and I need to press record because I know as soon as Kevin and I get going, we're excited, we're talking. So I'm so thrilled to have you. I know that everyone listening is just going to get so much value from our conversation today and learn how to lead better from you. So tell us a little bit more about you and how we kind of got here.
Beautiful. Well, I grew up in Connecticut, just a small town, West Haven, New Haven County. Grew up in Connecticut. Went to a small private school. Went to University of Virginia, and that was when pretty much everything changed. The school I went to changed my mindset. And so we'll probably talk later about mindset. That's why I want to mention it all the way back. The school I went to for high school changed my mindset. I'm a first generation college kid, and it changed my mindset from if I go to college to when I go to college. Right. And so not
Mm.
an if, but a when. That's a very important mindset lesson that I learned way back. And so if anybody's jotting down notes today, mindset from if to when, right? So that's it. I went to University of Virginia, bounced around country, I should say, working in corporate America, decided to start my own company when I got to Los Angeles. That company initially was focused on entertainment. And now here we are. I can go forward and fill in some more blanks, but it went from that to consulting, doing some international business, and then that's when the rest of the story. When we replay the tape, we look back and we say, "Oh, that's interesting. I should write about that. I should speak about that."
Yeah. And you're speaking right all over the country. I think all over the world too. You've been in different places speaking. Your book is called and your course is called, which we'll talk about more, especially later towards the end of the episode, but it's called Let the Leader Lead. What were we doing before we were letting the leader lead? What were we
We
doing
were.
wrong?
Well, I hate to use the W word, but we certainly could have pivoted and done something differently, right? And slight nuance. The course is Let the Leader Lead because it's the first phase of being licensed to lead, Kingdom Business licensed to lead, right? So letting the leader lead is, again, mindset. Changing our mindset from I'm not a leader to I'm a leader, but how should I lead? Who should I lead? Right. And if we can let the leader lead, whether it's myself individually, giving myself permission to do that, right? This is the self love, right? Give myself permission to do that, or allowing somebody else to be who they are authentically and effortlessly. Let them do what they know how to do. And if I have tools to help them, then let me do that. Let the leader lead.
Got it. So it's like the confidence building of like, yes, I can do this. And also like the awareness to be like, I'm not the best at this. Somebody else can either do it better, see it differently, lead better. Because yeah, I'm sure there's instances where someone thinks, oh, I can do it the best, but they limit somebody else from being able to lead at their best. There's like some ego involved in there. How do we, if we know we're meant to lead and we're like maybe too hands on, what can we speak to, to people like that, where it's like, hey, maybe a step back actually is going to help everybody, go a little bit more forward. Is that the case?
Yeah, that in some cases that is the case. It's kind of like provision or resources, right? When we get to a space of understanding that London and Kevin can both prosper and there's still plenty for other people,
Mm.
right? So London and Kevin can lead how they're called to lead, and there's still leadership roles for others. The way I say it in the book, and whenever I get the opportunity to speak to people about this or coach about this, you might be called to lead one person, to move that one person along. But that one is called to lead 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, millions. If you don't lead the one, that one can't lead, free, coach, push, inspire the millions that they were called to do so.
Yeah, it's like the domino effect, but even knocking down one domino can knock down more. What are some like good qualities of good leaders? Like what can we embody even more on a day-to-day basis to lead even better?
I love the question, and I had the conversation this morning.
Mm.
Um, of all the things that you could consider yourself, and I say consider because it's a process, right? Identity is a process and it's an evolving process. Do your best to serve above all. Do your best to serve above all. When your mindset is on, how can I help this person? How can I help these people? That's where the magic happens. That's where your leadership grows accidentally, right? If I'm looking for, let's say, okay, so your podcast is amazing, but let's say it wasn't, right? Let's say it wasn't. I could say, well, I'm a pretty good speaker. Let me say, hey, I want to be in your podcast, and let me go find 10 more people that are engaging and bring them, right? So if I'm thinking about what makes London better, if I'm thinking about what makes my friend better, my mom better, my dad better, my neighbor better, if I'm thinking of how can I serve, right? That's step one. That's step one. I saw I'm sorry, let me pause because when you ask that question, it's made me think of 15 things. So let me pause and let you ask another question.
No, I love that. Seeing your leadership not as like, look at me, but look at you, or how can I help you? And I remember this, like point in my life, my early 20s. I was living in Austria. I was on all these different stages, doing workout events, all the things. And now, where I'm at now, I can realize I was at a look at me point then. It was just like, look what I can do and all the tasks I can get done and look at the stage I can rock and whatever. I didn't know it then, but now I can see more of a like, look at you. Like I want to connect other people. When I meet someone, I'm like, hey, I can think of, three other, connections that could be meaningful and helpful for both of you. Or this reminds, so my brain, speaking of switch of mindset, it goes more towards like, how can we connect collectively to make, a bigger network or more expansion rather than just like, okay, well, how many people are you going to bring to my event or podcast listeners or whatever? I wrote that as you were speaking. I just take some notes in my notebook, and I was like, it kind of looks like, yeah, going from look at me and what I can do and my power and my leadership, whatever, to, hey, how can I support you? How can, we put the lantern up in the room and so that everybody can kind of be illuminated a little bit. That's at least what came up for me.
Yeah, no, that is it, and that's so perfect. Case in point, how are we even here? We had a conversation. You said, hey, you should do my podcast. Send me some photos. I can give you some ideas on some posts because I love what you have. Let's make it hotter. You weren't looking to get anything. You were like, how can I serve Kevin Suber? So what does that do with me? It just makes me think of how can I serve somebody else? Because leadership is leading by example, and leadership, I have a hashtag. It's called Lead Anyway. Life be lifing, things be happening. It's the nature. If you're not dead, then something has the capability, the possibility of be perceived as good or bad. And I say perceived as because we know ultimately everything that happens works for the good to build you into what you should be. You just have to pay attention to the clues, right? But life happens, right? The question is when it happens, when you face the challenge, how do you overcome the challenge? You lead anyway.
You lead
You
anyway.
lead anyway.
You
You
step
lead anyway.
in, lean in. Yeah, I can think of clients that I've worked with, or like even myself leading others. It's like you said, life be life. And sometimes I say people be peopling. It's like you just do your thing and you go through your feels and your real human experiences. When you're coaching leaders, I think serving is awesome. I tell my clients that too. If you're in a funk or whatever, go serve, go, do something for somebody else, go be of service, go just give, because in that, you can really find the synergy, like the reciprocation. How else do you inspire the leaders that you coach and you speak to lead anyway? I guess it's one thing to say, hey, hashtag lead anyway, but like what specifically do you advise that they do or even you do? I mean, you're great. Like when I'm around you, I can't help but be like more expansive and alive. And at the same time, I know you're a human. So I know there are many opportunities where you're leading anyway. But what's like that first step, or like what do we do to lead anyway?
Once again, another incredible question. So, servant, what's next? Entrepreneur. When I do a lot of C-suite coaching, one of the top 3 questions I always get asked is this. First, they say this: I want my team to take more responsibility. Then they ask this question: can you show them how to be more entrepreneurial? Servant, entrepreneur. Why is this important? It's important because of this. The entrepreneur might be making lunch and then doing the lunch meeting. The entrepreneur might make the money, then balance the checkbook, then deposit, and then pay the. As the business grows, the entrepreneur is wearing many hats. Why is that important? Because when people be peopling, when life be lifing, right? Maybe a door is shut. Okay, now I can focus on this shut door, or I can say, might be another door. Maybe I need to turn around. Maybe I need to go to the right. Maybe I need to pause. Maybe I need to pray. Maybe I need to meditate, right? So there's always so much more. And if the mindset is entrepreneurial, right, how do I keep moving forward? Because the goal is 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 the goal. We got to get to the goal. Sometimes progress looks like stepping to the side to the left. Sometimes progress looks like stepping to the side to the right. Sometimes progress looks like stopping completely, because if we take one more step, there's a ditch.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to work on our mindset, our mindset, our mindset. Well, how do we do that? Who are we talking to? What are we reading? What are we saying? Because that vibration out of the mouth comes right back. Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, and he said they were having a conversation about food and about ceremonial washing. And he said, it's not what comes into the mouth that poisons the body. It's what comes out of the mouth. That is what affects the body. Right? And so what are we saying? Because it affects our body. What's coming out of our mouth? Right? Are we
Yep.
speaking life or death?
Yes. And you know me and words and communication and, saying, change your words, change your world. What we say is what we see. And I think people don't really take that to heart. They think, oh yeah, it's just like, that term toxic positivity. And it's like, it's more than that. It's being very intentional with the words that you speak into the world. There was a quote from, not Jackie, the Bruce Lee. He said something about like, be intentional with the words that you say, and, your words cast spells. That's why it's called spelling, like be mindful of what you say out loud. And so I say this all the time. So I'm just glad that you're here to echo that too, because we can just go so fast, do all the things. We're not even paying attention to what we're putting out, what vibration we're putting out with our words into the world. You mentioned if to when, not if I was going to go to college, but when. What other words, and maybe you can dive into that a little bit more too, but like what other words do you hear, especially from leaders, that you can like identify maybe some limiting beliefs in their words and the way that they speak, and what shifts, like what other shift nuggets, let's say, do you have when it comes to words?
Some people have seen this before, and if they haven't, maybe they're grabbing this for the first time. But the quote is, I never lose, I always win. I always win. Why is that? Because either I win or I learn, and learning is a win.
Mm-hmm.
So the L word, love is in my vocabulary, right? Lose, don't really say that a lot unless I'm painting a picture on how to not have that mindset. We always win. We always win. I have a business partner, played in the NFL, fellow UVA Wahoo. He says, we stay at go. We stay at go. Always be ready to make progress. That's what he means by that. We stay at go. So when the phone call comes, when the email comes, when the text message comes, right? Be in one of two positions. Know how you can and will accomplish it. Know who you need to call to help.
Yeah. That second one, I personally like operate under the mindset that like I don't know shit and I want to be the dumbest person in the room. Like I will pick anybody's brain. I will ask anybody for 5 minutes of their time. I've had more connections by like sliding in the DMs of someone just asking for help. And what I do know is that's not easy for a lot of people. And it's not easy for a lot of leaders, probably in that upper level position. Or maybe it is because maybe that's how they got there. But I also know with the people I work with, sometimes it's like, I just want to do it myself or I don't want to ask for help. And I personally believe, that hinders the impact. Like you mentioned, like the domino that gets to knock down 1,000 other dominoes. I think it's almost selfish or like not of service to not ask for help. So, how do we get people listening, or how do you get the people that you work with to see it as a strength to ask for help and not like a weakness? Hey, really quick, I want to interrupt the podcast for just a minute to tell you about one of my favorite supplements for hair, skin, nails, digestive, and gut health. And that is Snap Supplements Super Greens with collagen. Now, if you're following me on social media, you've probably seen me post about this a bunch because honestly, this product tastes amazing and it's jam-packed with nutrients, like I said, to support healthy hair, skin, and nails. It helps support detoxification, a healthy immune system, and there's even probiotics in there for a healthy gut. It's non-GMO, no sugar added, soy-free, grass-fed collagen, and every scoop is going to give you 7 grams of protein. And this is why I love it, because it's not like a protein shake. It's just a scoop of powder. It tastes amazing. I put it in water, or if I want more hydration, I'll put it in coconut water and mix it up. And it's like having a nice, refreshing beverage that's packed with a bunch of super greens and protein. So what I'm super excited about is that for listening to the podcast, you'll get this discount here, nowhere else, but for listening to the podcast. You can save 25% off on all your Snap supplement purchases, including the super greens with collagen. And you do that by using code Lunden25 at checkout. That's LUNDEN 25. LUNDEN 25 to get 25% off at checkout. You can shop on snapsupplements.com or you can shop on my website, lifelikelondon.com/supplements. And you'll see there's already an additional 10% taken off. But you, because you're a podcast listener, you're going to get 25% off when you use the code Lunden25 at checkout. LUNDEN 25 at checkout to get your Snap supplements, super greens, and collagen, and all your Snap supplements for 25% off. Now, let's get back to the show.
Another great question. The ego that limits is the ego that licenses you to lead. The ego that limits, that same ego can give you license to lead. What do I mean by that? I want to do it myself, right? So if you're dealing with that person, if you're trying to lead that person, if you're trying to mentor or coach that person that operates in the silo, right? I want to do it myself. I'm capable of doing it myself. I want to show what I can do. Do you want to go farther? Do you want to make a bigger impact? Do you want this thing to be even bigger? 99 times out of 100, the answer is yes. Great. Let me show you how to do it. Get help. Ask the question. Make one more text message, one more email, one more phone call. You want to go far? You want to do something amazing? Go alone on your own strength. You want to change the world? Go with a team. You want to impact nations? Go with the team. You want to change generations? Go with the team. You want to alter implications? Go with the team. Go with the team. You will always do more with the team. It doesn't matter what we know. Somebody knows one more thing, and that one thing they know might be the key to pick the lock.
Mm-hmm. Or they might say something that just provides a shift for you where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't see it that way or think of it that way.
Yep.
Humans are so amazing. Like the more people that I get to know, like the more I think we're so wonderful. And so I can't possibly know it all. And I just think there's, so many other people with skills, talents, insights, just know-how, or just like wisdom and just being who they are that can provide exactly like you mentioned. You want to, go here, go alone. If you want to go further and beyond, and I even think making an impact beyond your own life, it's like do it within a team. I can think of examples of what you mentioned, like just, in my life too, of leaders who, want to tell everyone how to do it and micromanage and a lot of things. And I remember a leader that is wonderful. She's still a really close friend of mine. And we worked together in Europe, and she just kept climbing and climbing. And even to this day gets head high. Like she is so amazing. And I remember talking with her one time because she was leading a lot of people that, quite frankly, from a doing perspective, like she couldn't do their job. She doesn't have the skill set to do that. Right. But I remember asking her, like, yeah, just because we're close, like, how do you do, like, what's your, and she goes, you know what, Lunden, I realize it's not about, like, leadership is not about knowing how to do everyone's job. It's about knowing how to elevate people and empower them to want to do their job even better and serve with even more excellence. And all along I had been thinking, oh, how can I teach people to like be a mini me, like do the things I do and just like do it like this. Like I thought I was going to find people and then show them the protocol and the process of the doing. But she helped me realize, and I don't even think it even clicked then, but even now there's some calls I have with people on my team where we just talk to talk. I don't ask about their tasks. I don't care about their deadlines. Maybe if they have a couple questions at the end, they'll ask me, but we'll just talk for like an hour and I'll be like, how are you? Like, what's your life like? Like, what's going on? And just have like a friendly, get to know each other conversation. And that has been so much more, number one, profound for like their productivity and creativity, but also way less stressful for me because you know me, I'll get on and talk. I love to learn about people, but I'd sometimes be stressed thinking like, how am I going to hop on this meeting and tell them every single thing they need to do and how to do it? But I'm like, they know what to do. Like that's their expertise. They're the graphic designer. They're the copy. Like they know. How can I uplift them and help them feel seen and heard and even more? And so when my former boss had told me that, it didn't click right away. It took like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years for me to finally realize it and then be it and see it in that process. But how important is that to like lead people, not necessarily, or let's say, I'm sure there's both, right? So what is that balance between like the people you're leading, making sure they like do the thing and like the boxes are checked off, but then at the same time, they're people and they're humans with feelings and, their human experience. How do we balance out the both? And, you mentioned a lot of hats. So I think those are a couple hats that we can highlight. What are good practices to balance out, this is what you do and how are you? How's it going?
Right. Wow. So people, humans, and feelings. People, humans, feelings, right? People, humans, feelings, right? Servant, entrepreneur, coach, speaker. A great speaker does a couple of things. They got some stories to tell, right? And they make a connection. If they're a great speaker, they make a connection. So how do you do it? You got to make that connection. You got to make that connection. Well, how do we make connection? Well, we can be vulnerable. So many times we think showing or being transparent, right? And use wisdom, but 99 times out of 100, right? Transparency and vulnerability inspires. The first So a story, right? Speakers got stories, right? The first short film I did, it was actually 3 short films concurrently. The client didn't want to change the amount of money they wanted to spend. Number 1, money. They didn't want to change the deadline. Number 2. Number 3, they didn't want to change the scope of work. And I mention those 3 things specifically because with any project, you have a triangle. You have a project triangle. It's the scope of work, right? It's the money, and it's when is this due? Time. Those 3 things. And if you change one, if one becomes very rigid, you likely will have to change the other one or both of the other 2. This client didn't want to change any of them, and it wasn't enough money, and it wasn't enough time, and the scope of work was insane. So the first thing I did was pray. I was like,
Right.
all right,
First things
I
first.
need to do this, but how am I going to do this? And during prayer, the one person I needed came up. He knew everything that I did not know. He knew everything that I did not know. And I said, Bobby, here's the project. You know everything I don't know, but I need you to walk me through this. And they're going to ask me the questions. He said, Suber, you're the man, and we will get through this together. And one by one, we got the right people to oversee all 3 of these short films. We shot all of them at the same time. So what you did was you took a person who had never done it before, never. But because of my vulnerability and my transparency, I was able to put the right person next to me, the right other 3 people over the individual films. It got done on time, and it got done under budget with the same crazy scope of work. You got to be vulnerable. You got to connect. You got to inspire your people and not be afraid to find people that know what you don't know, because 2 things will happen. Number 1, you're going to win. And number 2, you're going to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm sure you learned so much what you didn't think was possible in the moment, or you couldn't see. Somebody else had that vision and was like, oh yeah, we can make that happen. We can do that. I meditate a lot, and I'm a firm believer and seer in like that feeling ahead of the experience, right? The gratitude before it is made manifest, give thanks and you will receive. That plays a role. And I know that you believe that too. So, speak on that a little bit, but how do you help the leaders that you work with, or when you speak, how do you help people really get on board with that piece? Because if you would have just been like, oh, it's not possible, this client's, ridiculous and whatevs, it's going to have to be this way, I don't think you would have attracted, and even in your life, attracted the people and, cultivated that community of people that are like, oh, I got you, you got me, I got you. How do you coach that?
So perfect. Servant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Entrepreneur, speaker, and now coach. So with each individual or organization that I am coaching, there's a methodology that is very specific for them. That's why I'm not cheap. But here's the important through line, okay? The important through line is a concept called the 4 pillars. The 4 pillars. In any particular way, no particular order, it's your health and wellness life is a pillar. Your business, educational, vocational life is a pillar. Your interpersonal skills is a pillar. And last but certainly not least, your spirit life is a pillar. If any of those 4 are off, the other 3 topple. Let me say it again. If any of those 4 are off, the other 3 topple. Arguably, the spiritual pillar is the one that can serve as a foundation for all of the pillars. That is the one that helps you to change your atmosphere. That is the one that helps you to change your mindset. That is the one that allows you to see what you can't see, and then you can see, and then you can communicate what you do see. which every great leader communicates what they do see. Vision, vision, vision. My title in my company is not CEO. My title in my company is CVO, Chief Visionary Officer. My right hand is not a senior VP. He is a senior visionary officer. We see it first, and then we put the pieces together to accomplish. But what we see, we will not see unless we take the time to stop, pray, and then we see.
Mm-hmm.
You got to stop.
Yep.
You got to handle your spiritual life. And if you don't, challenges are coming.
Mm-hmm. Challenges that you won't have the tools for.
And yet I give those tools too. But when it happens, right? When it first happens, you're like, oh my God, what happened? I didn't see that. Of course you didn't see it. You didn't take time away from everybody and get into the spirit space that you needed to be in.
Mm-hmm. We think
You
we just
thought
gotta go. Mm-hmm.
Somebody told you, grind, baby, grind, 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 grind. And there is no substitute for hard work. But you do need to rest. I had a 6th grade history teacher, Carl Crawford. He just recently passed away. He said, you don't understand this now. Not 6th grade, 8th grade. He said, you don't understand this now. One of the most important things you will ever learn to do as an adult is to master catnaps. I was like, what is he talking about? But now I understand the power of rest.
Yeah.
The power of rest. The power of rest. Most dreamers, right? Most dreamers, most prophetic people, they have that vision when they're resting.
Mm-hmm. When you're resting, when you're not trying to think about it, it just kind of comes.
It comes.
I so resonate with that. I mean, that hustle, that grind, that, do more is more. The more you do, the more you're worth. I grew up definitely in a family of, hard work, do all the things. And for a long time, I was just like hustling my brains out. And speaking of, the 4 pillars of health and wellness, whatever, and business, entrepreneur, personal, spiritual, when I think of health and wellness too, I was like, the fitness persona. I was the healthiest person that I knew. I was eating all the right foods, doing all the things. But I was working from the instant my eyeballs opened to, that last minute that I would need to go to sleep to maybe get my 6 to 7 hours of sleep. And it wreaked havoc on my body and on my business and on my life and all the things. So we think, as long as you like eat healthy, exercise and do all the things, all the things will get done. And I'm so happy that you mentioned rest, because I was thinking about that too, because we've talked a lot about, okay, like what can we do? How can we communicate with our teams, ask for help, all those things. But that recovery and that rest time is so important. And I often say, like, I need to be horizontal. Like, I just need to be in bed and like, just know, and I plug in those times now where, like, of course, Sundays, no calls, just rest, recovery, trying to do my recharge thing. And then Wednesdays, I've been plugging in a few hours just to be like, whatever is not connected with your phone, computer, just like be outside in nature, maybe be in bed, like you mentioned, cat nap. But I schedule that because I know myself. I know my autopilot is just going to get going and just keep going. And then it's harder to hear those whispers of like, Lunden, you need to slow down. And I don't want to get to the point, because I've been there, where my body's like banging down the door, like, you need a break, And I think a lot of leaders, entrepreneurs, we have that grind, that hustle, that momentum, that desire, that hunger. But rest is so important, or I should say, and rest is so important too. How do you coach that? Do you just tell people take a break? Like, how do we, or how, like, for people listening who might feel a little bit like, oh, no time for rest, but it is time.
It is time. And it's interesting. So how do I coach that? I coach it a couple of ways. The first is simply by saying it out loud, right? You need to rest, right? The second is by giving stories and examples, and hopefully they can identify with it. The third is asking them to reflect upon a time in their life, reflect upon a time in their life where they actually saw, you know what? I took a break, I was refreshed, and actually got more done. Long time ago, at a place far, far away, I was working in corporate America. I was also rapping. You know, I just knew I was going to be the greatest rapper in the world.
I didn't know that. I also
Now
used
you
to
know.
rap when I was in high school on the radio with my friend. We have
Oh
this
my
in
God.
common.
Yeah.
You're
Look,
probably way
it's
better than me, but I loved it. It was so fun.
hey, who knows? Neither one of us got the record deal, right? So,
Here we are.
and yet here we are, still speaking. Um, and so I was working corporate during the week, whatever. And the studio that I worked at was in Washington D.C. My man Mike Hughes. So I would do what I did, and I would jump in a car and I would drive up to D.C. I lived in Virginia. It'd take 2.5 hours to get up there, and I wanted to start as soon as I walked in the door. Come on, let's go, let's go. Let's go. And Mike wanted to talk when I got in there. He said, "What's up, man? How you doing?" And he would slow me down. And one day I just insisted, right? Hey, come on, man, we got to go. It was horrible. It was a terrible session, right? It took 8 hours to do something that should have been so simple. And he said, "Man, Shorty," DC guy, "Man, Shorty, let me tell you something, man. I know what I'm doing, but I had to let you do you so you could understand, man, if you ain't in the right frame of mind, it's just not going to get done right, Shorty. You need to learn how to slow down. You think slowing down is slowing you down. I'm trying to tell you after years of doing this right here, Shorty, slowing down is speeding you up." And I never forgot
Mm,
that lesson, because more important than the grind and the speed is the state of mind.
yep.
The state of mind. If you're in the right state of mind, that's when the magic happens. That's when victory is not maybe victory comes. No, right mindset, right atmosphere, victory is imminent. It's going to happen.
Right mindset, right atmosphere. And the slowing down, I notice too. I mean, we speak, so I can speak fast and naturally I'm more of a fast talker. But over the years, I've worked really on slowing down. And even in the moment when I can catch myself like, oh, I want to do, I'm like, how can I move a little bit slower? How can I talk a little bit slower? How can we do things a little bit slower so then we can listen and tune in? Or else we're just, muffling the message of what needs to come through. And yeah, that's really helpful. And so I think, we can all think of a leader or maybe somebody listening, you are leading teams, whatever. We want to go, 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 do all the things, get it done faster. But slower can really be the answer. How do you, I know you're a dad, a parent. How
Mm-hmm.
do you like lead or not lead? Or you know what I mean? Your
Yeah.
your kids. I know a lot of my clients are parents and a lot of people listening are parents. And how can we take what we've learned today on leadership to help lead our younger generation? I have a niece, she's 5, and there's a lot of things where I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that until I was 30. I want her to see that before then, but without me being like, you do it this way because this is how I learned it. I want there to be
Mm-hmm.
a discovery, but also like a guided discovery to things that I think will be helpful and useful for her moving forward. How do we, how do you lead, the younger generation, your kids, and
Mm-hmm.
those coming after us? Because speaking of, the domino effect or the bigger
Yeah.
impact, I
Yeah.
really feel like that's there too.
So either you said it or I heard it in my mind, but driving towards the goal, right? So when you think of driving, um, as in a leadership driving, a leader driving, it's a couple ways, several ways to do it, right? You can, it could be a Tesla, right? It is autonomous driving, right? Plug it in, boom, that's where it's going. And it's going to go there, period, in the story, right? You can be the guardrails, right? You can be on one side of the highway, the expressway, the freeway, and be on the other side of the expressway, the freeway, and the road goes where the road goes, still to the same destination. You can be the example, which is the North Star. People follow the North Star to get to where they want to go, right? Be the example, the North Star, be the guardrails, or be the programming, right? One of those three things. As a parent, your DNA tends to be the programming. There are some things that we do simply because we do, because the DNA is the programming, right? Now, there's another kind of programming, a leadership programming that I talk about in the course, Let the Leader Lead. I'm going to say that. I'm going to leave that on the table. You want to know what that DNA is? Go check it out. Okay, divine nature algorithm. All right, so there's that, right? What I try to do with respect to the children specifically, right? But that also includes people I mentor. I try to be guardrails and be the example, right? Because they can look at me and say, I like the way he does that. I don't like the way he does that,
And that's
right?
cool.
And that's cool. But if the guardrails are up, they know they got a lot of space in there that they can operate and use their own gifts and talents to move down the road, right? So if I'm the example, if I'm the North Star, and there's some guardrails there, what I tend to not want to do, and I tend to tell most people, is don't try to become the DNA, because the DNA is already DNA. So don't try to become it. Just let it do what it does. Focus on the other two of the three.
Yeah, I love that. The North Star, the guardrails, and letting
Yeah,
people.
and autonomy. Yeah, the North Star, the guardrails, and the autonomous driving, right? So the programming is what it is. Don't Kevin Suber, don't you try to reprogram the programming. It does what it does, right? It does what it does. Focus on the other two, which you actually have control over. We can always change our example. I can always get up earlier. I can always read another book. I can always talk to another person. I can always walk for 30 minutes 3 times a week. I can always be humble. I can always serve. I can always do, there's things I can do. I can always set parameters. I can control parameters.
Mm-hmm.
So let me work on what I can control and leave the rest to what it is.
Right? If not, we try to control other people, and that's a battle we can't win. But I love that. North Star, guardrails, and the autonomous driving. You dropped a little bit about your course, which I'm so excited to share with our listeners. Kevin also created a course with Naba, like I did, and that's how we connected, which I'm so grateful for. I feel like I can't wait to see everybody in person again. I just am so excited to love on everybody in real life. I've been like, let's talk on Instagram, let's come on the podcast, like all the ways we can connect. And Kevin created a course called Let the Leader Lead, which is also the title of his book. So it's like a course and book combination for those of you that are looking to, lead better yourselves, others, grow your influence, and a lot more. Tell us a little bit more. You get us excited. Give us a little FOMO if we haven't taken the course yet about this course. And then, of course, I'll link all the stuff in the description below. But give us a little taste of what we can expect in the Let the Leader Lead course.
Beautiful. Well, it's built around a couple of things. The book, as you said, and I'm writing another book. So it's built around the existing book, but it's also built around some concepts coming in the next book. So by taking a course, it's like a little cheat sheet, right? You get to get some things before the rest of the public gets it, right? Because it's packed in, Let the Leader Lead. I build around those things that help us lead better and things that could potentially prevent us from leading, whether it be the simple mindset or the concept of everyone is a leader. Everyone is a leader. Everyone is a leader. Who? Everyone. So I build that out, and we talk about that in the course. We talk about overcoming challenges, because if you're leading, challenges are imminent. It's not about how do I prevent challenges. It's about how do I overcome the challenges. The acronym is CLAP. I dig into it in depth in the course. That's it. In fact, let's build just a little bit on that, right? So a room is quiet. You start clapping. What happens? You just disrupted the room, right? So clapping is a mindset of how do I overcome the challenge? You have to stop doing what you did, right? You have to disrupt it, right? The C is for change. Change what you're doing. L, look around. Okay, where am I? All right. A, assess. Assess. Okay, I am where I am. How did I get here? Where was I? Where am I now? Where do I want to go? And the P is for pivot. Once I've assessed, shift, go another direction. I dig into it even deeper in the course. I dig into it even deeper in the book. And by the way, I've taken some great questions. So the course isn't just me downloading information. There's questions, so as we go along, you can kind of work it out. And the same with the books, right? So there's the book, and then there's the journal. There's a journey journal. So as you work through, you can write it out.
I love that. That helps me for sure. And I'm sure people listening too, with like learning and absorbing, to have kind of a place to absorb and then process, write things down, whatever might come up. Oh, thank you so much for your time and your presence and just who you are. I am so grateful that we could have you here on the podcast today. I'll put the links to the course and your book and all the things in the description. So for those of you listening, I know you want to grab that so you can connect there. And yeah, Kevin, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to give you a hug again in real life and see you soon. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much. And, I speak around the country. So certainly follow me on Instagram or Twitter or, LinkedIn, wherever you happen to be, and look to see where I'm speaking. If I'm in your neighborhood, come on out.
Cool. I'll link all your social media and stuff too. Thank you, Kevin, for being here again. And thank you guys for listening.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. Hey, do me a favor. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, give us a review. This really helps a lot. And share this with a friend. I'm only one person, and with your help, we can really spread the message of self-love and sweat and change more lives all around the world. I'm Lunden Souza, reminding you that you deserve a life full of passion, presence, and purpose, fueled by self-love and sweat. This podcast is a Hit Spot Austria production.